wanted to make a short video about some techniques that I used to use when I was teaching myself how to play drums, and why everybody could, well, when I was a kid, people would be kind of shocked because I wouldn't practice, but I would always get better. And the reason for this is because I would do all these little things to train my body constantly, and nobody else did these things. I would look at other drummers, and I back then I wouldn't take conscious awareness of it, but now I realize all these things that I used to do, and I would constantly improve. And that's why I could play any sort of music, and I wouldn't waste drum heads, I wouldn't waste drumsticks. My sticks last a long time. My drum heads last a long time. And that's because I practice when I'm not practicing drums, when I'm not sitting behind a drum set. And I explain here for this guy on his YouTube channel, because he makes videos of himself learning and practicing and trying to develop, and he's doing it very impractically. You know, drums are one of the only instruments that you can play and practice without actually having the instrument. And people don't realize this. They think that you need to sit behind a drum set and work out your legs and work out your feet and your ankles and your calves, and that's completely false. You can do skateboarders, for instance, the motion of ollieing. And I skated for about 13 years, and I would skate all day, every day. And because of that, ollieing constantly, your feet are doing the exact same motion of a heel up foot on a trap set. So other people drum with their heel down. I have a physical issue where I can't actually squat and keep my feet flat on the ground, so I've always been a heel up drummer, but which coincidentally made skateboarding very difficult, because every time I would squat down to ollie, I had to balance on the front of my feet, and that's why I would roll my ankles a lot, and I would crash a lot. But enough about skateboarding. So I mentioned here, every time you walk, every day at least, try doing just 100 toe-ups. Start off doing that many. You can do as many as 1,000 if you want, honestly. You'll be able to play drums for 6 hours straight if you do that many. And you get to the point where I was. And, I mean, I would copy a lot of Chris Adler, but I mainly write my own music. And Chris Adler is one of the most talented drummers to ever live. He really is extraordinary in his techniques and what he does. So if you can keep up with those guys, then I've always thought you're going somewhere. You know, you get something to be proud of. And another thing is violin. For instance, you can work out your fingers. Do that for piano to train your muscles. You know, stuff like this I do. But drummers you can work out switching your arms, independent syncopations of all 4 limbs, doing this, running with your feet, independently, do it with your big toes, play with your toes, constantly, rudiments too, especially with your toes and your fingers, and syncopating independently between the 4 and switching off. And that really helps you to control your limbs independently, which is a big struggle for a lot of drummers. It's probably a reason why a lot of people can't drive manual transmissions anymore too, because people aren't training to independently control their limbs like a drummer does. So I always say drummers and skateboarders make the best drummers, and drummers make the best drivers, because we know how to run all 4 limbs independently. So stuff like heel toeing, left foot braking, easy, simple stuff. That's advanced driving techniques. But for a drummer, what you're doing with your legs independently, if you're running a rudiment with your feet on a double bass pedal or a hi-hat even in a kick drum, and then you're running syncopated taps with your snare, and then you're also running different fills and stuff with your right hand. You're doing 4 different things at once. So it's another thing I do is I play drums with my teeth in my mouth. I chatter. I'm gonna go stuff like that to do like double bass runs and things. And what that helps with is getting your eardrums in your equilibrium. Like I said, I didn't realize all this. I just did it as a kid because my brain was always on drums. But now I realize when you do that, what you're doing, your equilibrium and your eardrums are sort of, it's like a concussion in your brain, in your head, that helps when you do play drums. Then it naturally gives you a timing. It gives you a really good natural sense of timing. And well, of course, it helps you with creativity too. You can run out any imagination, any sort of just flaw you can work out while you're listening to music on radio or on your iPod. But, and I think the last thing is, let's see, we did toe-ups. I always walk on the fronts of my feet. It's another thing I mentioned in this. It floats my heel, and it gives you a good control. Actually, I had to train just to walk differently when I was studying Wing Chun. It's completely different from the other style of martial arts I learned as a kid. But final thing is, don't practice behind the drum set. Don't practice these sorts of basic timing, the tempo, the rudiments. You can work that out off the drum set. And so that'll keep you always getting better every time you find a drum set. It gets you excited and looking forward to try these things so that you don't have to spend the time and waste your time sitting there doing doop, 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 trying to work out your leg muscles when you can do this everywhere else you are in life. You can walk in tempo, you can walk in time. And eventually, as a natural drummer, if you understand all this stuff, everything you'll do will be in rhythm. So it's fun being a drummer. You really are a different sort of person. But using heavier drumsticks too. Before I get on to heavier drumsticks, this saves your drum heads. Drum heads are expensive, timely to replace. They take forever to replace. It really bums you out. You gotta stretch them. And if you're wasting your drum heads sitting there, by the time you do finally get good, you're gonna have to get new drum heads, and that's gonna feel different. And you're gonna be trained. Your body's going to be trained to your older drum heads, the older tension. And then you're gonna have to retune and try to find that, and that just takes forever. It's a nuisance. What my technique does is it allows you to learn control so that you can play on different drum sets that have different setups and still play at your level. And so that goes into using heavier drumsticks. When you use heavy drumsticks to practice with, get a practice pad, or you can do it on your snare if you want to, but A-heads are great because you're not wasting wood. And if you get a really good balanced set of wooden sticks, you never get that same set of drumsticks again. And so you're wasting your drumsticks practicing. Now, unless you aren't doing rim shots or, you're just sitting there tapping, but if you're practicing a drum set and using wooden drumsticks, you're wearing out a good set of sticks that you might never find again. It's like having a good pair of shoes that go out of production. You get those perfect pair of shoes that are comfortable. Well, same thing with drumsticks. I find drumsticks that I fucking love, and so I don't ruin them. I don't play them except for when I really want that feel. 90% of the time I'm using A-head drumsticks because they're engineered to be more consistent, and they are, but also they're pretty heavy. You can get really heavy drumsticks that are training your muscles, your forearms, so once you build up your speed with heavy drumsticks and you move to lighter sticks, you'll be like 10 times quicker. It's unbelievable. And I think when I was a kid, I used to play with Bobby Rock drumsticks, and then I moved to Joey Jordison's signature sticks, and I could keep up with anybody in terms of speed. And I think that's everything. At least that I mentioned in that comment. Like I say, you do all this so that when you get behind a drum set, you're really looking forward to it, and you're going to try new things. And you're already going to be at a point where you've approached tempo and control, so that you don't have to waste your drum heads, you don't waste your cymbals. And then that allows you to focus on all these more important techniques, like how to hit cymbals properly, and how to hit the drum head properly, rather than learning everything at the same time. You can break it apart and learn your control separately, so that it just makes your brain focus well on the more important things as a drummer to become what you can definitely be. You just don't want to be sitting there working on to a fucking tempo or a metronome. Ugh, never practice with the metronome. And the reason is because you really don't need one if you count. And once you get that natural timing down from doing all these things I'm talking about, you're gonna have a lot more fun. You just be one of those guys who sits down, gets better. People are gonna wonder how the hell you're getting better, but you're not practicing, because they don't know what you're secretly doing. They're gonna think you're neurotic. I mean, you walk around town doing toe-ups, people give you funny looks. You tap your feet up and down, moving constantly. I mean, you're doing 120 beats a minute with your feet. People think you got some hyperactive disorder, but truth is you're practicing and training and becoming better because of it.